Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Osoyoos Town Council Committee of the Whole meeting, Monday, May 5th, 0900 in Council Chambers. The first item up would be the agenda, looking at the introduction of late items, and we have two. We will have a presentation from Mr. Stephen Garrett, who's a guest in town, of the Hospice Society. Janet Shaw from the Hospice Society is also here, and I'll get into that in just a minute. Secondly, there will be under Business 5, there will be a verbal report from Councillor Ryan dealing with the SILGA convention and the possibility of holding that convention conference in the town of Osoyoos as far out as 2017, I believe.
Correct.
SILGA standing for the Southern Interior Local Government Association. So having said that, is there any other additions to the agenda? Any comments on that? That agenda will be adopted by consensus. So we'll go right to delegations, and Mr. Stephen Garrett, who has a large knowledge of hospice and a different way of looking at the end of the road for all of us. Mr. Garrett is presenting today at 2 o'clock at the Osoyoos Golf Course, and he's making that same presentation in Oliver at 7 p.m. at Medici's, sort of across from the post office in Oliver for us folks that don't know the address system. So I think we're really being honored to have Mr. Garrett here with his knowledge and a sort of an appeal that people should be listening to, and a bit of a different approach, and certainly the approach of hospice and what we're trying to get going both in Oliver and Osoyoos with the Desert Hospice Society. So Mr. Garrett, if you'd like to kick it off. Oh, Janet first? Absolutely. I'm sorry.
Well, good morning, Mayor Wells and members of council and staff, and we appreciate being added to your agenda as a late item. How fortunate we were that Mayor Wells showed up to our Hike for Hospice that was held yesterday in Oliver, and it was attended by both communities, and despite the inclement weather, we had a great event. But Mr. Garrett is an invited guest of the Desert Valley Hospice Society in recognition of National Hospice Week. And our event yesterday, our Hike for Hospice, was not only about fundraising for Desert Valley Hospice Society, but in fact to raise awareness around the topic of the need for services for palliative and end-of-life care. And Mr. Garrett is an inspirational speaker and author, and as Mayor Wells has mentioned, we'll be doing 2 community presentations later. But I think what I want to emphasize in bringing Mr. Garrett to our communities is his approach to the fact that we will all die, and that it is part of living, and that we need to change our attitudes and have the conversations, and I call them brave conversations, around making sure that our values and beliefs for end of life are shared with our loved ones, and that we look at death as part of living, and that we don't fear it, so that we can actually have a good ending. So I'm not going to take any more time of the precious time that we've been allowed, but I did want to share with you that it is National Hospice Week and the efforts of the Hospice Society in both of our communities. So thanks for the opportunity to speak, and Stephen, welcome.
Hi, I am Stephen Garrett, and some of my friends call me the Death Guy. my 2 boys think it's a really weird title, and most everybody else does as well. If I were here in front of you and I had a black hoodie on and you couldn't see my face and I had a switchblade, would I be welcomely received? No, I wouldn't be. And yet that's the image that we've laid on top of death. That's why 83% of Canadians do not have any advanced care planning done. They don't have their advanced wills done. They don't have their representation agreements done. It's because we have this very nasty relationship with death. My whole piece is around, let's change that relationship. Let's just get rid of the Grim Reaper. Let's rebrand that dude because it's not serving us anymore. If we were to have a different relationship with death, perhaps we would plan just a little bit better. 83% of Canadians want to die at home. 20% do. I ask myself, well, why is that? Well, it's because we haven't done our planning well. We haven't done our planning well because families don't want to talk about the end of life. They just refuse to, and so we don't do the planning. 25% of our healthcare budget every year is spent on 5% of the population in the last 10 months of their life. Understand that one?
Could you repeat that?
25% of our healthcare spending is spent on 5% of the population in the last 10 months of their life. That's a direct result of not doing our planning well. It's all knee-jerk responses. People roll into emergency wards, they roll into hospitals, no planning has been done, there's not been any preparation done, and so everybody's responding by throwing resources unplanned at those dying. So if we were to do our planning slightly better, if we were to spend more time looking at end of life, getting together our representation agreements, what we want healthcare-wise at the end of our lives, those resources could be allocated more formally and less reactively. For example, most rural hospices are with cap in hand, year after year, looking for funds to do the good work, as opposed to providing them with funding for some of their core staff needs. If we were to use our hospices a little bit more fully, they're already in the business of death and dying, we may be able to help families plan more fully and more carefully. I used to be a cremationist. I was in the funeral business. And most families, 9 out of 10 families that came to us, were ill prepared. The chaos that reigns when families are facing death and dying, not prepared, is frightening. The amount of money that's spent on funerals is staggering. The average funeral is about $9,000 in Canada because people make bad decisions when the death is here and we're in the emotional part of our brain. So needless to say, we have a fair bit of work to do. In rural BC, in a community as beautiful as Osoyoos, it's even more exaggerated because your population is 51% seniors. In Canada, our population is 33 1/3%, 65 years of age and older. The fastest growing area of our demographics are octogenarians. So our population is aging very quickly. And that tsunami of aging, the baby boomers, is going to bring to our healthcare system some consequences that are going to be pretty difficult to deal with if we're not talking about it as a culture. So this is my whole point, is let's get out there, let's take the hood off the Grim Reaper, let's take his switchblade away, let's sit down and have a warm and, though difficult, conversation about death and dying. The other piece I'll leave with you, if I may, is they say it takes a village to raise a child. It also takes a village to grieve. And when we have losses of loved ones, it's very important for us to do so in community. When I was in Bali a few years ago, they have public cremations there that are celebrations of life that is just beyond belief for us North Americans. Yes, there's weeping and there's sorrow, but there's also this tremendous party and celebration and uplifting time where family members and neighbors can get together and share memories and share faces and share pictures and just share the grieving process. So I'm a big hospice volunteer myself, and I'm a big fan of hospice because I believe firmly in my heart that this work is important for the health of our communities. 8 people are affected primarily when one person dies. If we don't do our grief work well, the negative impact on their mental, emotional, and physical health is through the roof. So it's all about having these conversations, talking clearly and honestly with folks like you. Do you know the wave that's coming at you? And let's start to do some planning for it. You know, Janet Shaw is out there doing her amazing work. I was at a party at her place last night with fantastic people who really do care about community. They really do care about death and dying and treating our older people as elders, not as olders. So this is what I'm all about, and I hope to leave some positive inspiration with your community and with you as well, that perhaps we should sit down and have a little chat about our demise. I've done so with my boys. I've got a death binder at home, and I call it my death binder, and in it is my representation agreement. Who speaks for me should I be unable to do so? I don't want my boys to have to make difficult decisions for me. I have to do that for my father. My father's on his deathbed. He can't speak. Wow. Do I unplug him? What a tough decision for a son to make. So I've got my stuff done. My boys don't have to make that decision. I don't want any heroic measures. Don't plug me into a machine. If I can live, I live. If I die, I die. They're off the hook. And as a responsible father, I think that's a real gift I can give my kids and my wife. I also made it very clear where I want to be cremated, where I want my ashes to go, who I want at the party, the music I want played. I want the Rolling Stones playing when I'm going out, you know? So it's all organized. I've also prepared a life insurance policy that will pay for my 2 boys and my wife to travel to India to toss my ashes in the Ganges River, because that's my wish. So it's all taken care of. So if I can plan that way responsibly for myself, we just have to do the technology, and we can start to plan for larger families, larger neighborhoods, and larger communities. So that's my shtick. I'm very glad I met you at the walk yesterday, though I was shivering my feet off. It was great to meet you and have some fun. I thank you very much for your time. I just really encourage you all to continue to do the good work. Pay attention to Janet and her team members. They have a real good message to share with us. And the more that we can prepare as a community, the more healthy the community will be. You folks are lucky. I mean, I'm thinking maybe I should move to Osoyoos. It doesn't rain as much in here as it does in Vancouver. And the people here are fantastic. I'm traveling around British Columbia, seeing lots of rural communities. We lack something in Vancouver that you all have here in rural BC. It's fantastic. I get treated so well and appreciated that I'm thinking, wow, maybe this is the spot to really do some good work. And so I thank you for your time. I don't have much else to say aside from let's get at it and let's have the conversation so that we can die with dignity and that our families can be honored for the death that's going on in front of them. So, Stu, you had a question?
Yes, there may be some input from council or a couple of questions, but on your comment about moving here, I'd like to extend Canada's warmest welcome, other than yesterday.
Thank you very much. Yeah. If you have any questions at all, I'd be very glad to answer them.
Councilor Rhodes.
I'd also like to add that yesterday in White Rock, in a 24-hour period, they had more rain than we get in a year.
I was talking to my wife in language. It's like, oh man, it's coming down.
Yeah, it was a downpour of. Anyway, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
I guess I now feel more comfortable saying great subject to talk about. You know, all of us go through that kind of thing, and you know, in retrospect, when you look back at things that happened in your lifetime, and the message you usually get is how not to do it when it comes to that type of thing, and certainly been there and done that. It was very divisive in my family when it happened, and I wish I would have had some of the advice that that you've given in this very short period of time. So, no questions, just to say thank you. It was inspiring, just a few minutes, and thanks a lot.
You're most welcome.
Yeah.
But, I'll share. May I share one short story with you all?
Sure.
There was a family in Regina who were having some challenges with their mother, the matriarch of the family. She was dying of cancer. She was palliative, no doubt. There was no cure for her at all. And the family was frightened to death. They didn't want to talk about Mom's passing. Her name was Vivian. Her daughter phoned me from Regina and said, can you give me a hand here? My family's going down fast. I said, sure. So I gave her a little bit of coaching, and as it would happen, the family came to Maple Ridge to get some naturopathic cure for their mom, and I had a chance to be with the family. The father, the husband didn't want to talk about it. The other sister didn't want to talk about it. Vivian certainly didn't want to talk about it. So they invited me to dinner, and in walks the Grim Reaper to the family. I'm the death guy, right? So I looked at Vivian, I looked her square in the eyes, and I called her honey for some reason. It wasn't a form of diminishment. I just really felt her heart. So I said, honey, you know what we're going to do tonight? And she said, no. I said, we're going to talk about your death. I know that's going to be hard for you, but we're going to go ahead anyways. Can I have your permission to do so? And she looked at me, and she kind of had a little tear in her eye, and she went, mm-hmm. And that's all she said. I looked at the husband, said the same thing, the other daughter, and the woman I was working with. And we began a very short 45-minute conversation. That conversation led to a celebration of Vivian's life that was fantastic for her family. It led to her doing her representation agreements. It led to her getting her advanced care directives done. It led to her getting her will done. It led to a wonderful, open, loving goodbye that the family wouldn't have had they not had the courage to have that conversation about a death that was so obvious. The thing I noticed as I began speaking was there was this kind of like a, oh, thank God somebody has the courage to talk about it. So I'll leave you with that story, and that's my wish, is that families have those conversations so they can exhale and they can have the celebration that the one dying is due. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. Was Councillor Ryan, any further comment on that?
Again,
Okay.
just to reemphasize our gratitude, and I've taken some notes here about things that I have to do. So thank you
for that. Thank you very much.
And this is being webcast, so if anyone's interested, of course, we have the Desert Valley Hospice Society here that you can both become a member in or get information from. If you happen to pick this up, 2 o'clock this afternoon at the golf course, I believe there's a small $10 charge or something along that line, helping to pay for maybe the coffee or the room or things like that, because the Desert Valley is a pretty lean not-for-profit organization. So thanks for coming to council, and thanks for that message that you brought, and hopefully we're moving ahead, and perhaps one day in small rural British Columbia towns, hospices will be funded.
I look forward to that. Thank you so much. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Janet Shaw.
Well, thank you to everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks. Okay, into business under D1, Affordable Housing Society. Director Cunningham, were you making that pitch?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Next week, in accordance with our business plan, staff will be posting an invitation for expression of interest, EOI, for purchase and residential development of the town-owned Richter property. The main body of the information package, which will be made available on request to any interested developer, is attached here. As can be seen, the selected developer's responsibilities will include setting aside 15% of their approximately 40 homes as near-market affordable units for sale at a discounted price to targeted working households, especially younger families. The affordable units would be managed by an affordable housing society or authority based on community volunteers, which the package says is currently being formed. While staff welcomes any comments on the package itself, the intent of this report is to request council authorization to start work on bringing together terms of reference for an affordable housing society or authority for their consideration. Our OCP Southeast Medlock Area Plan, approved by Council in 2010, contains the following policy. Quote, SEM 13, recruit a suitable non-profit society to assist with targeting delivery of affordable units to qualified recipients, including maintaining an eligibility list. In retrospect, it is advisable to consider the relative merits of a society, which would largely be autonomous for the town, with those of a semi-autonomous authority. However, staff does not recommend considering a third model, which incorporates affordable housing management as an administrative function of local government, which is common in some Southeast U.S. jurisdictions, because it would place staff in the owner's position of deciding who and who would not be offered the opportunity to purchase an affordable home. At the start of the current council's term, Councillor Ryan volunteered to take on affordable housing as his personal project. Accordingly, it is recommended that council now formally recognize him as council's representative for setting up and sitting on an Affordable Housing Society Authority, with Director Cunningham available as a resource person. The terms of reference to develop collaboratively by Councillor Ryan and the Director would address key issues of purpose and scope, membership, and recruitment of community volunteers, including reaching out to members of our previous Affordable Housing Task Force, as well as operational procedures. It is also proposed that as a first task, the volunteer members could usually collaborate in developing the program guidelines, which they would be responsible for administrating. An excellent starting point for this discussion is the attached example from California, City of Mountain View below market rate housing program administrative guidelines. Options. Option 1, appoint Councillor Ryan as council's representative in setting up and sitting on a council-approved Affordable Housing Society Authority, with the Director of Planning and Development Services available as a resource person. Option 2, other institutional arrangements that would satisfactorily meet our obligations for delivering affordable housing to targeted recipients. Impacts. Community. The town's commitment to building affordable housing has a strong basis through our OCP Affordable Housing Strategy and Task Force, Southeast Meadowlark Area Plan, and Intensive Residential Development Permit IRDTPA guidelines, and would continue through community volunteers and the Affordable Housing Society Authority. Budget terms of reference will be prepared in-house, and operating costs will be minimal. Organizational collaborative effort between Councillor Ryan and Director Cunningham. Timelines. Terms of reference should be submitted to Council within 2 months, ready for recruiting citizen members. Sustainability. Providing new market affordable housing to working households and preferably younger families will assist broadening our economy and diversifying our community. Staff recommends option 1, and if Council was to wish to proceed forward with a resolution, then that would could be done this afternoon at your regular meeting. Thank you.
Great. Council input, please. Councilor McCordock.
Yes, I would like to move option 1, that we appoint.
No, we can't make a recommendation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, this is just for discussion. So you can have that same dialogue as verbiage.
I would certainly think that this makes absolute sense, that Councillor Ryan, who's has requested that he be on such a committee at the beginning of his term. It seems like the logical, sensible person to be on this, so I'm certainly in favor of that.
Okay, thank you. I would just, when we're looking at it, it looks like a major task. And I was wondering if there could be an alternate, or should there, let's have the discussion about having an alternate. Sometimes we do that on some of our major committees, just because, you know, if there's holidays, absentee, and some things have to go forward. I think there'd be a bit of comfort level if we looked at maybe an alternate.
Excellent idea.
Okay. Anything else from council on this? It really is, it's refreshing to see this at the point where we're moving forward. It would be really good when we see the community committee members, that when they come forward, I think we can really get some impetus and get this rolling, and the property is there, and it's slowly coming together, but that's, again, that is local government. You know, it's the nature of the beast, and we try to do this relatively in a smooth transition. So I'm looking forward to this going forward. Councillor Ryan.
Yes, I think your suggestion is an excellent one. We've done that on a number of our committees, and you're right. It does give some a little bit more depth to the council involvement and to the effort itself. And yeah, I was just delighted. Got a call from Len about a week ago, and he was ready to turn to this. And I said, well, it's exciting because you know, I've been looking forward to it, and have talked to people. You know, identified various. Thought a lot about it, and we've met a number of times over the last couple of years, and you know, I don't know if everyone's had a chance to read that attachment, but if not, try to find some time to do so, because it's an excellent study, a case study of what they've done in another community, and I think it'll be a good skeleton for us to use to work out our own guidelines.
Okay, so the verbal recommendation would be to bring this back this afternoon, and we'll have a discussion amongst ourselves over anybody that wants to take that alternate position on there. And that would not just be alternate. Hopefully that would be able to have come to a meeting too, and bring forth two minds, and particularly when it's getting going and formulated, and with the townsfolk that are being appointed in that. So I think that would be a good comfort level there. So we'll have a look at that this afternoon. Next item on the agenda, report 2, Gyro Park Plaza, phase 1 in the parking lot. Again, Director Cunningham, please.
Okay, a lot of numbers in this report, so hold on to your seat. The Gyro Park Multi-Purpose Plaza project has its origins in the 2012 planning charrette for Gyro Park, initiated by our Waterfront Steering Committee. Close to 30 community stakeholders assisted City Spaces Consulting prepare an overall plan for guiding redevelopment of Gyro Park, which was endorsed by Council. and that's shown on the presentation board on your left there. The plan recommends a number of implementation projects, the first priority being Gyro Park Plaza. The town subsequently retained the services of Outland Design Landscape Architecture to design, tender, and supervise construction of the Plaza project, as well as other landscaping projects needed to finish off capital works in the area. Outland's design concepts were successfully presented to a public open house on February 6 and formed the basis of their subsequent design work. They have completed final designs for the Gyro Park Plaza and parking lot and are currently designing all the remaining works. And I'm happy to say that, in fact, this morning I opened up my computer and the 70% design completion is there for the other projects. So we'll be discussing that with Public Works. To spread out costs, the Gyro Park Plaza project will be completed over 2 years. Phase 1 for this year has been combined with landscaping the new Gyro parking lot because of their interlocking nature. See the other presentation board. The scope of work includes removing the old parking lot, installing pavers, concrete universal access pathways, and a large composite deck, tree planting, vegetative cover and irrigation systems, light standards and electrical conduits, and bench furnishings. This report advises council of the expensive bids which we have recently received for this work, suggests why they are so much higher than we budgeted, and recommends how we could respond, including retendering. Now on to the tender process and results. Council's 2014 operating plan and 5-year capital plan budgets for $440,263 for first phase landscaping of the Gyro Park Plaza and $130,799 for the second phase. The plan also budgets $20,799 for landscaping the new Gyro parking lot. Thus, the combined budget this year for Gyro Park Phase 1 and the parking lot is $4,680,062. Invitations for tenders were posted on April 2nd with BC Bid, the Osoyoos Times, and the South Interior Construction Association, and on the town's website. 5 received tenders were opened on the closing date of April 16th with the following results. I'm not going to read the whole table out, but I note that the lowest that we got was around $799,000, and the highest we got was just short of $900,000. I also point out that there was 2 optional works that were included as well that everybody bid on. Why are the tenders so high? Following are some possible explanations why the tenders far exceed our budget. The original budget was not based on cost estimates, but rather on available resort municipality and town reserve funding. Outland Design's latest estimates actually came in significantly higher at $543,257.50 for Gyro Park Phase 1 and the parking lot. Even those estimates may not have properly accounted for a less competitive local marketplace as, say, compared with Kelowna. And I got that advice from Terry Underwood, who's had a lot of experience bidding here. And, you know, we are a smaller market, as, say, compared with Kelowna, and you can anticipate that we may have to pay a higher cost for that. One of the contractors who attended the tender opening advised that by springtime, landscapers are already set up with summer projects, so they do not have a strong incentive to be competitive. He advised September would probably be better. Outland Design provided staff with a spreadsheet comparing how the 5 tender companies broke down their costs between 70 budget items. We compared the highest budget estimate against the lowest for each item and found that 15 are 200 to 300% costlier, 12 are 300 to 500% costlier, and no less than 16 are 600 to 900 plus percent costlier. We also calculated a local tender price based on the lowest estimates for all items, which comes to about $575,000. Admittedly, this is not a totally realistic scenario because of differential comparative advantages between contractors, e.g. relative experience and expertise and experience, access to local labor, and higher purchasing power from suppliers. But it is indicative of the potential for obtaining more competitive tenders. What can we do? Notify contractors that council has to retender because of the very high cost estimates in our finite budget. Expand the previous 2 weeks allowed for submitting tenders to 1 month so that contractors can take more care preparing cost estimates. Retender again in late July, ready for starting construction in mid-September. Over the summer, Outline will review their specified materials and speak with suppliers to seek out ways of saving costs without compromising the overall aesthetics and functionality of their design. Next, depending upon the tender results, we could postpone either or both optional works 1 and 2 for Gyro Park Plaza. Lastly, we should also tender out to all the other landscaping projects in late July, and depending upon those results, and if necessary, we could move some cost savings and or reprioritize funding to Gyro Park Plaza, assuming that Council agrees that is the centerpiece of our lakefront improvements and should be completed as quickly as possible. However, staff recommends against delaying resurfacing of the marina split walkways, which we obviously want to open up as quickly as possible, and installing the decorative rock slope above the marina parking lot because of the possibility of slippage there. We got a bare slope, and we could, with some rainfall, lose some of it. Option 1, select the lowest bidder from the recent tender opening, not realistic. Option 2, retender in July, recommended. Option 3, postpone till future year. Impacts, community. Completing the Gyro Park multi-purpose plaza accords with the very high priority awarded to this project by all community stakeholders in our successful charrette. Budget. Delaying constructions until September will gain us a bigger bang for a buck, as well as avoid conflicts with summer park users. Organizational. The director and outline are enjoying a very collaborative working relationship. Timelines, July 22nd, issue tender calls for Gyro and other landscaping projects. August 23rd, tender openings. September 2nd, council selects contractor or contractors and confirms funding. September 15th, start construction for approved 214 projects. Sustainability, the Gyro Park multi-purpose plaza project will be a major recreational attraction for our residents and tourist industry. Staff recommends option number 2.
Thanks, Director Cunningham. Just before I flip this over to council, I want to add a couple of questions in there after hearing that report. And one of the questions would be, is September late enough? Looking at the usage, I'd like council to consider that, event-wise, and it's in the wine festival and that. So is September late enough? Because a lot of times we've actually gained some economic traction by going later in the year because the contractors can work in Osoyoos because of our friendlier climate than say they can work in Vernon or some of the colder parts of the Okanagan. So there may be an opportunity for that. And I guess the other question I always have about these is sort of counterproductive to what I was asking about maybe getting a cheaper price is I get nervous about these kind of contracts, and I wonder if there should be date time frames associated with this. And if we go into the late fall, we probably don't need, completed by numbers associated with dollars or penalties or anything, because we can run late. But anything other than that, I really think that dates and completion dates and start dates should be coming a part of some of our tenders that are going out for a lot of our work around our sensitive tourist areas.
Okay, I'll be pleased to respond to both those good questions. Is September late enough? I chose September merely because the contractor was here suggested that. Certainly I would be pleased to contact our consultants and ask for some good timelines in terms of how much it would take to complete all these projects before our winter season. And if in fact their response is favorable, then I would suggest to the CEO that in fact we defer them further, maybe by another month, and adjust all the other timelines accordingly. As for imposing penalties for lateness, I believe that has been discussed on at least one occasion previously by council. I personally believe that it's a good system, but I do have to point out that it comes at a price. Contractors who take this commitment on will cover it off by increasing their budget. And we've heard that the typical surcharge will be about 5%. So I just want to and that's going to be substantial on the kind of money that we're talking about here. So I just want to point that out.
Okay, thank you. And again, if we ran this one late, that wouldn't be an issue, but looking at a general contract approach to contractors. CAO Ravenko, please.
Thank you, Mayor Wells. Just to inform council that late penalties are a standard clause in all our contracts.
Okay.
It's just a matter of the degree of implementation that we have to consider given all the factors that may come up. So all those clauses are in the contracts that we run. In this particular situation, there may be some benefit relative to keeping it rather open-ended, because if we run the contract in fall, they don't finish, but they have early spring work. That may allow for either some, to say, okay, I can do this in fall and I can do this in spring, given the early winter. So there's some advantage to that as well in terms of how we schedule this work.
Yeah, great points. No, and I think that may work for us. And I guess when we're going to tender, and there are triggering penalty moments, completion by dates, maybe we should just maybe have that noted as a part of our report out and what we're doing, so that council understands that there is a completion date on all of our contracts. Thank you. Councillor Rhodes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of comments and a question. In your report, and the reality is we actually have three different amounts. We have the dollar value of what we have. There's the amount that the consultants thought that it should be, and then we have the actual tender result amounts. And I'm just I'm a little troubled by waiting until the fall so that we can get a better deal. I understand that process very well. I think we will. But are we going to be able to achieve anything that is once again realistic for us? I mean, they would have to, almost come back with a 40 to 50% reduction in their cost to even get it close to the amount that we have, or 40% to get close to the expected amount that was given to us by the consultant. And I'm just wondering if it might not be better to, this is not the full picture of what we're doing down there. These are phases of the bigger picture that we're doing. Would it not make more sense for us to maybe break it down a little bit more and try to achieve some of the projects based on the amount of money that we have allocated, or the money that we have to spend on it now? I'm just not really convinced that we're going to achieve a dollar value by retendering in the fall that's going to be close to what we have or what we can afford.
Okay, I'll answer
I understand that was kind of
answer those questions as best as I can. I do believe that we will get a dramatic revision when we retender. Going through the results there, it was very obvious when you look at the comparisons over those 60 items between the highest and the lowest, that people, I would say it goes further, they didn't have a very fine pencil. I'd say they weren't giving it that much consideration. So I think that when we deal in a more competitive marketplace, which would be later this year, I think certainly people will give it a lot more attention. And also, too, with the letters that we're going to be sending out this afternoon or tomorrow, we'll be making very clear that this is far over budget and we expect something better next time round. So I am confident that we're going to get a lower price. How much that'll be, of course, I'm not prepared to say that. As for delaying it, well, this gets into the situation of a bit of a trade-off between the September and the later month that the mayor opened a discussion about, and you may feel that you don't want to delay it longer than September. Going to the point of splitting the contract into pieces, we already did that as much as we could with respect to these two options that the contractors separately or included in their bid. And I've had discussions with the consultants about this, and they're of the opinion that we would lose real continuity and coordination of the project if we cut it up any further. You know, we'll be getting contractors coming in. There's costs in terms of setting up each time, so we'd have to repeat those. There's the possibility of things, you know, not continuing the way they should from the first phase to the next phase. So you know, we've already split these two options out. We've already split the large project into two major phases. There's the spine, which is on the right-hand side of that board. That's already split off for next year. I don't really think that we'd gain anything by subdividing it any further, and I think there could be perils in doing that. So I really recommend against it.
Okay. Thank you. Would it be fair to when we're looking at the tender, of course, and so we're looking at an individual that's contracted out to write the tender. Now, he may have miscommunicated with the contractors also. He could probably go out and now he's going to rewrite that and make sure he's got it right, and maybe there's a misfire there on how that's presented. I mean, everyone, you know, we do have communication errors.
I totally agree with that, and that's why I've asked them to go back and look at their specifications and have a discussion with some of the suppliers, because there wasn't only just major differences in terms of the labor and so forth that these different contractors were going to put in. You know, it's an open market, and there was, you know, really large differences in terms of things like paving stones and even plants. And with some of our local people charging more for plants than the contractors would down on the coast. So clearly, I think all around there's a need to you know, make it very clear that we really want a good bang for a buck, that we need to take very, very careful care in terms of selecting materials. We shouldn't be, you know, over specifying what they are. And perhaps this time round, I would suggest that the contractors may have a discussion with their consultants. I could see that happening. If I was a contractor and I didn't get the job this time, I'd be saying to our consultant, what do I have to do next time to get this? And I would actually promote that.
Okay, thank you. CAO Romanco, Councillor McCordoff.
I think one of the key components is going over the specifications again, as Alan alluded to, because I know that one of the things that is really expensive in that, on all the proposals, is things like benches and bike racks, and those, like, we're talking, you know, in some situations, looking at specifications, a bench can be $600–700, a bike rack $500. So we'll be going over those specifications, and yes, I think it's fair to say that our contractor had a sense of aesthetics and ambiance with the park, and maybe we have to review that, and not to say that we have to, you know, tone it down, but I think we have to be realistic relative to some of those specifications and see what we can do to bring the cost in line. The other thing, waiting till a later period of time now we have information that we did get our resort municipality funding for next year. So we don't have to wait until next year to say, okay, we do have our funding in place that we identified for waterfront improvements. So there is the potential that we can place some more funding towards the project to make it work as well.
If we get the right price.
If we get the right price.
Thank you. Councillor McCordoff.
Yes, thank you. You did mention in your report that you felt that it was important to do the Marina Spit walkways and the decorative rock slope above the sailing club, and I think that makes common sense. I'm just wondering if we have a price for that you know, that particular project or those two particular projects.
I didn't have time to go through all of the consultants' email package this morning. But we definitely have a price for the slope, and I think we have some prices for some of the other projects, but I didn't have time to go through it all. It's going to be sitting for me on my desk when I get back. So we've either got most of it or a good, you know, or all of it. I don't know yet.
So would that be available, those two projects, those could be done anytime soon? They're not going to make a difference about summer traffic. Do you think those could be done in the next month or two?
Well, I don't know if we get hit by the same scenario that everybody's pretty busy. The slope may be different because it's a different type of contractor that might be interested in that.
Okay.
But certainly, that's a very, very good suggestion. I'll review that with our consultants, whether there's any opportunity of going earlier with those and whether it would be worthwhile or not. Okay, thanks for that point.
Okay. Councilor Rhodes?
Thanks again, Mayor Wells. Well, this is not really a related topic, but it kind of sort of is just based on that. And anybody that knows me knows that I'll take any opportunity to rant about passions and things like that. I wanted to just draw some attention to the bid results. And on that list, it's very obvious that there is one local component to it and 4 that are not local. And I wanted to point out that the difference between the local component and the lowest bidder is less than 3%. It's about 2.5%. And in my mind, in my opinion, that's a compelling amount to not accept the lowest bidder in this particular thing. We're very, very close. I understand all of the legalities and all the professional advice that we often get about it, but you know, we're darn close, and based on formulas and information that's available on areas all over the world that have not accepted the lowest bidding in all cases, you know, it's about $22,000, and the benefit of selecting that local component would be somewhere in the order of about $90,000 because of the people that live in our community, that participate, and all of those other things that I've talked about endlessly. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention right now. If we're going to break this down and look at that parking lot scenario and put funding towards that, I hope we have at least that opportunity to view that with these tender results.
I fully understand your point, and I would dearly love to be able to break the law and give a local contractor a leg up. I think it's a very admirable thing to do, especially when you say that it's within 3%. However, we do have to respect legalities. As you might appreciate, other competing contractors might have something to say if we acted inappropriately. My earnest desire is that the local contractor in question would pick up the challenge from this competition and make sure that his bid is the lowest. And they do have an advantage in being located right close here. I did notice, I went through the costs. Unlike the other people, they had no startup costs. Right there was a saving. Well, maybe they can go through the rest of the numbers and see where they might be able to make other cost savings that beneficially would put us in the position that they would come out number 1.
Thank you. CAO Romanko?
Thank you, Mayor Wells. Alain, just a question. The Gyro Park and parking lot, they're 2 separate bid projects. They weren't combined?
They were combined together because they are so interlocking.
Oh, okay.
It would be extremely convoluted
We just
to break them
budgeted for
apart.
them separately.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so
Right.
it's not possible really to maybe show some incremental improvements in the short term with the parking lot, and
I think I totally understand the point, but I think it would be a poor expenditure of public funds. We will get far better use of our dollars if we tie these projects together for tendering purposes, because they are so closely tied together in terms of the design and construction.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'm going to sort of wade into this, and I've heard it go back and forth. I certainly support Councillor Rhodes and smaller chunks and smaller bites. And if we are going to re-tender this, I would hope that we can really look at Councillor Rhodes' question and see if it's a possibility with the consultant that's going to do that. And I realize it might be, but some of it, you know, there could be some pieces there, and I think anything we can do for local business is important. Absolutely. So as long if we go and say we had a real honest look at it, on the reevaluation and the retendering, then we'll take that.
I will have that discussion with the contractor.
Okay, and I knew you would. Thank you, Director Cunningham. Anything further? Hearing none. So where are we going with this, CAO Romanco?
Well, we're going to go back and take a look at the proposal. We'll probably take it. Well, Alain will be working with our landscape architect to review the specifications, and then take a look at a retendering process. We'll talk. I mean, we may have another waterfront steering committee meeting and readdress the phasing of projects, trying to get a understanding, maybe in discussions with our landscape architect, what is the potential in that particular area, and then we'll come back to council and provide information as to whether we're going to be kind of tendering, retendering, and maybe some time frames attached to it.
Okay, so this was a non-resolution meeting. So are we bringing it forward today for that resolution to retender?
No, we don't need a resolution to retender. Realistically, we would need a resolution to get more money.
Okay.
But given that the tenders are way over budget,
right,
and the direction is to see this project through, right. I think it just from a common sense perspective, we would just retender. We rework the project. If there are any significant changes to what was initially proposed with the project, we would bring them back to council for approval. But if we can just, you know, make some internal types of changes that are still meeting our goals, we'll retender.
Okay, so excellent suggestion there to gather all the facts together, and I think we should take them to a meeting of the Waterfront Steering Committee. If necessary, have one of the consultants there, because there may be questions that come up during the discussions that we haven't thought of before. And as for the situation right now, I will be advising by letter probably tomorrow to the 5 contractors that we will be retendering, but because of the conversation which we had today, I will be not putting a strict time on that. I'll be saying probably going to be later this summer.
I guess it's a little bit neat sitting in this seat. I maybe get last comment. When we were going through that, I know one of the expensive items was the man-made composite decking for the walk. And when we go through this, I would hate to see that cut to a natural wood product, because the natural wood product in the Osoyoos Okanagan Sun you'd be at it every 3 years for sure. So
absolutely. Any monies that you may save on an initial construction, I would suggest would quickly disappear in maintenance costs over a number of 3 years, and with the added danger of a lot of dissatisfaction amongst our public works people. Okay. They would be out there every year, I believe.
Okay, and the public.
Right.
Okay. Thank you. That we'll deal with that as described. Under business 3, general local elections. You're going to take a seat with us? Great, thank you.
Can you get back there?
Ms. Van Vienen, please.
A little higher. Thank you. As council is aware, we have elections coming up on November the 15th, and in accordance with the legislation, we do have to have bylaws in place, which we do. We do have 2 valid bylaws. There's the election bylaw and the automated voting machine bylaw, and what I'm looking for right now is to see if council wants any changes made to those bylaws. We can make changes to minimum number of nominators. Right now we have 2. Nomination deposits, we don't have any right now. Advanced voting opportunities, We have one, we could have two if you wish. Special voting opportunities, which means we could go to hospitals or other facilities to do the voting, and mail voting. I know that council has had an interest in the mail voting, so just a little bit of information on that is because of the timelines on challenges for nominations and withdrawal of nominations, we cannot order the ballots until after October the 17th. And I talked to the supplier, and it's likely we won't have those in place until October the 27th, and then I have to review and make sure that count every single one of them. So that will take some time. So that's the approximate arrival date. The advanced voting date is November 5th, so there's really not a lot of time period between those two dates. And the approximate cost for both the paper, the postage, and whatnot is $7 to $10. And just a little bit further information for council is that the regional district did do it for Area A at the last election, and we only had 2 male voters come in for the election. So those are the things that council should consider. So what I'm asking for right now is whether you wish the election bylaws to remain the same or whether you wish to have some changes made to them.
Okay. Over to council. I guess one of the questions I have would be on eligibility. There always seems to be, you know, people that don't live in town, own that property in town, or don't live in town, and so when they come up and say, I live at 23 Horse Bluff Drive, is that verified?
Yes, everything is verified.
So everything is verified at the sign-in table?
That's correct. So if they are not an in-town voter, they have to have their 2 pieces of ID. Everybody has to have their 2 pieces of ID. If they're a non-resident property elector, they have to have the consent of all the other property owners of that property. So if there's 2 owners, the other owner has to give consent. There's only 1 vote per property. So that consent form would have to be in, or they have to fill in all of the registration documents for that, which say the legal description of the property, the civic address of the property, and that sort of thing, and they have to swear an oath. But we check it against our roll book anyways.
So they swear an oath then?
They do. When they sign their document for their application, they're actually swearing that the information is true and correct, and yeah, they're only allowed the 1 vote. So
Okay, so in your preamble report, it talks about a voters list. Now, we used to use those, and we've gone away from them. Could you talk about that, please?
Okay. Most municipalities are doing that now because the voters book was not able to be kept up to date, being the election every 3 years. We tried to use the provincial voters list. That didn't work because their boundaries are different. And what we were finding is people weren't on the list, people that had moved away for years that were still on the list, that sort of thing. So the voting book registration only is the way to go.
Okay.
And most municipalities are going that direction.
Okay, so that's basically verified as you vote.
That's right. They have to have the 2 pieces of identification.
Okay.
Yes, in order to vote.
Okay. Councilor Ryan.
Just on that, the whole question of address, you know, I mean, if somebody lives on Main Street, they could live, you know, outside the boundaries. If they live on, you know, 97th or something, they could live out the boundaries. So did you say that the actual address that they are proposing, saying that they live at or that shows on there, is verified in terms of us knowing where the numbers stop in terms of our town boundaries?
That's right. We do some education with our poll clerks or election officials, and they're given maps as to where those boundaries are. We also have somebody that stands at the door and, you know, checks the address if somebody's not sure if they're in town, out of town, and we do have the roll book to check against. If they are renters, they have to show the identification, something that has their actual address on it, whether it's a utility bill, a driver's license, something. And then we'll look at that address in comparison with what's in town and what's out of town.
Okay, good, thanks.
Okay, so the out-of-town voter, live out of town, own a building in town, what's the process for them?
So if there's more than 1 owner on that property, they have to get the consent of the other owners on a special form, and they also have to fill out a non-resident property elector certificate or application form, and they have to receive from us a non-resident property elector certificate
Okay.
in order to vote.
So if it was just one person, an individual, they could fill out that form. This is done before the election.
That's correct.
And they get a certificate allowing them to vote.
That's correct.
Okay, a chip, so to speak, I guess. Okay. Councillor Rhodes.
Thanks. So I wanted to ask, Canadians don't vote. You know, we have such a deplorable record and low percentages turning out for all levels of government, particularly in municipalities like this. One of the things in Canada that's worked well in about 14 locations is online voting. It's increased the participation, the interest, and at the end of the day, there's a heck of a lot higher percentage of people voting. Are we ever going to see that in British Columbia? Is it, you know, it mystifies me why, you know, a proven method of increasing participation in elections is just ignored by this province. And I just wondered if you'd heard anything, if there's been anything progressed with that.
There's nothing in the new legislation that's coming forward. I've gone to a workshop on that already, and there's nothing in this new legislation, and I don't know if the province is looking at that for future elections at this time.
And having just visited or attended the Silga Convention Conference workshop in Penticton, that of course comes up through the local government and through UBCM, and I'll turn that over to Councillor Ryan to answer that.
Thank you. Yes, there was a presentation by members of the Victoria provincial bureaucracy on this, and I do have some information that I'll share with you. You may already have seen it, but as you know, the changes are still being debated in the legislature. They haven't been voted on. But specifically on internet voting, we had a presentation on that in Victoria at the UBCM several years ago, and the question came up there, and they said that you know, they're looking at it, but you know, then they cite all the problems that they foresee with it. So it's certainly not imminent. It struck me that the changes that they're making are backward-looking. They're sort of trying to fix up things, you know, that maybe were you know, fuzzy before or hadn't been specified. They're not really looking forward. And I think there was something maybe mentioned even about telephone voting, you know, and then, well, how do you know the person is who they say they are? The one thing that is mentioned here is the whole question of deposits. And while we don't have any at the moment, that whole thing is, as you probably know, is being taken over by the chief electoral officer. It's out of the hands. The only thing they emphasize, the only thing that local governments will do in elections is run the election. They will not be responsible for disclosures. They will not be responsible for, you know, the expenditures and so on. That'll all be handled now by the office of the chief electoral officer.
Just in response to that, with the nomination deposits that we're speaking of here, those aren't going to be controlled by EBC. That's going to be municipalities, and those are like larger municipalities that had issues in the past where people would come in and want to get nominated, and you know, it would hold up, it caused them some issues. So now they would ask for, say, a $100 deposit if they wanted to put in their nomination until that nomination is set and they're ready to do the ballots.
I see. I thought it had been linked in the report to them filing their disclosure form, which they don't file with the municipality anymore.
No, they're doing those with Elections BC now. Yes.
I hope that's helpful.
Okay, so all our numbers are fine. We only need two people to sign your nomination papers.
And it's worked fine for us.
And it's worked fine. Okay, so again, this is not a decision meeting, the committee of the whole. When do you need this by?
The bylaw has to be adopted by August the 5th.
Oh, okay. Because I just, so we don't have to bring this forward this afternoon? No. Okay, and the letter that Mr. Marcelli presented has to do with this fact. So now, council will have a time to receive that letter through the due course, and put that into their information.
It's in another letter. I'm not
I've just
aware.
got a letter
Just-
hand
oh, okay.
delivered this morning, and I believe to front desk, and it'll go
Okay.
through the action tracker and the filing process and things like that. So it's coming through, and it can be, I just wanted to make sure it was going to be part of council's decision-making.
Okay.
Okay, so anything further from Ms. Van Vienen? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
When's our other meeting?
10:30.
10:30, okay, perfect. Into business 4, Desert Live funding.
Thank you, Mayor Wells. This is a follow-up report. Council passed 2 motions on March 3rd and directed the administration to inform Desert Live, Destination Osoyoos, on behalf of Desert Live Group, that they received an additional $25,000 in funding. However, the council also put certain conditions on that funding, and this report is in follow-up to those conditions. And attached is a letter from the Desert Live Group, Destination Osoyoos, speaking to the conditions, and they have provided an updated budget, and they've made a commitment to provide the additional information as presented by, requested by council. Although not in the motion, there was a request by council that some of this funding be allocated to kind of a local business program, enabling local businesses to get entertainment into their shops. The Destination Osoyoos is informing council that they feel that this is not one of the conditions that they can achieve. They feel that the overall community benefit is there for the business owners. So I'm bringing this to council as information, and if it was in the resolution, I'd be asking for a new resolution. But if council is steadfast on this condition, that we can bring this back to a meeting for a formal resolution relative to the funds being spent within the business component.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Council, please. Councilor McCordock.
Yeah, thank you. Having been to several of the Desert Live meetings, I think I understand their reasons for writing this back. What the money that was allocated from the town of Osoyoos is not, from what I gather, not going to pay entertainers. It's going to do all of the logistics, the signage, the security, the lights and the sound system and that type of thing. They have other money set aside to pay the entertainers. So they are very much aware that small businesses may wish to hire people to guitarists to play at dinner time for an hour, that type of thing. What I believe Desert Live is offering them is the chance to put any of that information on their website and also in the Osoyoos Times overview article on that. So they will be getting sort of free advertising, as it were, for this. And I think they have looked at it, and I'm quite comfortable that that they've dealt with it appropriately and listened to us. So I'm okay with that part from my point of view.
Thanks, Councilor McCordoff. And I've been sort of shadowing Councilor McCordoff at the meetings, attending some of them, and taking that secondary seat position. And I would have to support those statements. First year out. I think Council's request was admirable, that we try to get some of that money going out to some of the merchants. But as you can imagine, it's a fairly tight year, and there are a lot of ask dollars first time around, and perhaps that can happen, you know, in a different iteration down the road or next year or something like that. I still think it's really neat to have have that buy-in and to provide some of the funding, the town funding to it. But I think everyone's focusing on looking at the success for this year, and you know, they're doing a good job so far. So I would support that also. Anything else from council? So do we need to bring this back this afternoon?
No, there wasn't in the motion, but I wanted to inform council, and if there was a strong feeling that that's what you wanted, then put it in a resolution and I'll deal with it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Into the addition to the agenda, and again, this would be for information only, and this would look at, 3 of us went to the SILGA Convention Conference in Penticton. I was just there for the one day. I didn't stay overnight, but I know Councillor Ryan and McCordoff attended probably 3 days there actually, and there was a lot of good information. And at that, the opportunity to host the SILGA Convention came up. We did host it in 2000, Councillor Rose, right after the election. 9?
8 or 9.
8. We were elected in 8. That's right.
2009.
So it was the spring of 9.
Yeah,
It was
spring of
the spring of 2009. And obviously, we look at it as a good economic, besides highlighting the town and some of our amenities and values that we have, also a good economic development for motels, restaurants, general services, anybody with a shop on Main Street and that, Sonora Center. So I'll turn that over to Councillor Ryan, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we did realize when they mentioned that there were two other municipalities that had asked for the 15 and 16. We thought, ooh, we haven't had it for a while, and so I think it is timely that we put our name forward again, but it has changed. They had an excellent group of sponsors. They had a large room that had all their booths in, and so I think that probably it is different. It probably needs us to liaise with Allison Slater, the executive director, but I would like to suggest that we do ask our administration to do a feasibility of us holding it in 2017, which would be the next available date, and inquire about, you know, the requirements, the specifications that they have for holding the events now.
Okay. Councilor McCordoff?
Yes, I second the motion. We did discuss it over the last couple of days, and I think that we're really quite excited about looking at this proposal.
So we'll gather all that information, come back
Yes.
and look at the business plan and the implications, and
Yes.
have a report written and deal with it in a voting structure?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Formally, so we can gather all the information and council knows what the costs are and what the process may be and that, so we have full disclosure on the impacts.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything further? Okay, that is the end of the amended agenda. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Plant Ryan, all in favor? We're adjourned. The parcel tax review panel will start at 10:30 precisely.
And then we'll do closed after that?
I guess we'll do closed after that.
So you're not on
Parcel tax.